Hello, on to part two of chapter 7. Folks, I'm going to issue a trigger warning, and I probably should have in the first video, and I might do this in every video. There's going to be some things in this chapter that are going to piss off a lot of people, and I should give you full disclosure. I am neither a Republican nor a Democrat, although the Republicans repulse me more. Um, I perceive them as a threat to me and democracy. The Democrats have failed me in a lot of ways and the public in a lot of ways. But I, as Bill Maher likes to say, I caucus with them sometimes. However, I am a political independent. I would not be called a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, or anything like that. I do believe in a higher power. I have my own beliefs, and if you belong to a major religion or even a minor one, most of the time you would think of me as some type of heretic or something. I truly have independent thoughts on this concept. Um, I will talk about sociology. See, as we get into what would happen when humans interact with aliens, we have a lot more information because we know about humans. We have a science called sociology, political science, archaeology, history, or historiography. There's a lot we can talk about, and I will. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to piss off both sides of the political spectrum and many religious people because I'm going to be talking about it from my perspective. But I do try to back up everything I say with physical evidence, historical examples, some form of data. All right. So, who would have made contact if it has already been made? I mean, there's really only two entities we can talk about in this country. We can talk about the Air Force and the intelligence services, right? Um, I do know that if there is some type of disclosure and it comes from those two entities, their role in it will be revealed. To be honest with you, it's starting to reveal itself now. We have a lot of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests in work right now, and some in the past, some that prove fruitful, but right now, I think there's a lot more being requested from UFO investigators and politicians and members of the public. We have bipartisan committees and so on and so forth. So something is happening. And quite frankly, if it is revealed that the Air Force sat on this for decades, even from the last century to this one, and the intelligence services, and many people suspect that non-governmental actors in the form of military industrial complex corporations had this data and they withheld it from the public. It is actually an act of treason because all of those entities, the military, the intelligence services, and corporations, have motivations and drives, right? They're incentivized by the structures that they interact with. The military is incentivized by civilian oversight, external threats. Same with intelligence services. Corporations are incentivized by whatever laws they're bound to and profit. And all of that would be fine if it was above board and supervised by we the people, by our elected officials. But it really looks like the executive branch and the legislative branch and the judicial branch doesn't have a lot of oversight, insight, and power over this. And even the regular military appears to, most of it appears to be in ignorance of this or not able to look at it and do anything about it. And within the intelligence services, we don't know how far down the Russian doll goes, right? But if these entities have this information, they no doubt acted on it. And these phenomena, these interactions, are with some type of foreign agency. Maybe not a foreign country, maybe a foreign species, an extraterrestrial entity, an AI, and all of those activities, all of the UAP activities have some level of threat to national security, international security, the Earth's environment, nuclear facilities, civilian facilities, and civilian airspace safety. And if they've taken action on it without informing us, well, that's a form of treason. Individuals and small groups are not allowed to make diplomatic efforts and declare war or peace or neutrality with external forces. That is not how our government works. It's not how it's intended to work. Now, our intelligence agencies have already shown themselves to be unreliable actors. They've done many things in the shadows that have hurt our country in the long run, often in the short term. um, so, we the people, you and me, we need to talk to elected officials. We need to talk to the military, to the corporate entities. We need to talk to each other, and we need to assert our control over this, okay? Don't tell me it's too complex, too big. I've talked to some of you. You get a guy who's barely educated, okay? He can cite statistic after statistic, number after number of his favorite football players and NASCAR drivers and comic book writers, right? You have minds that are capable of obsessively compiling data and discussing it and doing something about it. You're just not applying it to this problem, and if this problem exists, it is more worth your effort than your favorite football team, your favorite NASCAR driver, your favorite movie star, or whatever. It is more globally important, because it contains both tremendous threat and benefit to everyone. Everyone. Okay? So, there are risks of disclosure, and it should be mentioned that completely uncontrolled, like a drinking from a fire hose type of disclosure, isn't what I'm aiming at. But I am aiming to open this up to public oversight. I am aiming for some transparency and for ways for this information to be disseminated. So, first of all, some people have the idea that once we develop an open contact with alien civilizations, we'll go into a golden age of high technology and improved medicine and lifespan and happiness and resources. And it may well be, but we can't look at it through rose tinted eyeglasses, all right? That's nonsense. Everything has benefits and risks, merits and demerits, and you have to intelligently navigate that. Let's talk about biological risks. We don't know if life elsewhere uses DNA or arises in a different form. There is some research that within certain volcanic glasses, not obsidian, mind you, a different type of volcanic glass, the temperature and tectonic processes can generate a type of RNA. And that may be one of the building blocks of life that leads to DNA based life forms. So it may be that DNA based life is ubiquitous and arises under certain conditions. Therefore, there is a biological risk to us if biological life from somewhere else comes here and we don't have an immunity to it, or if it's an invasive species of animal or plant that could crowd out local ecosystems. This was all mentioned in War of the Worlds. The fictional War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells talked about the Martians planting a certain plant that they fed on, and it also mentioned that the Martians were infected by Earth bacteria and viruses, right? So it's something to think about. I mean, we just had, our COVID lockdown, so we should understand the need for quarantine. You know, it should be mentioned that if this is an AI driven activity or phenomena, that yes, AIs are less likely to vector biological diseases, but it's not impossible. And it's a two-way risk. By coming here, they could easily get infected by our viruses, bacteria, or our flora and fauna could go to their biosphere and do something. Um, we need to understand that if we have contact with aliens, active contact, we should establish a spaceport or spaceports. We should have a quarantine section, something like an airlock. We should check for contraband. Um, to prevent harm to either parties. And now, if they've been here a while, which many of us suspect because the phenomena goes back a while, there's a little bit less risk because it would have kind of already happened, especially if this phenomena dates back centuries or millennia, right? In which case, whatever exchange could have happened has already happened, all right? But we we need to understand that. Another possibility is that food, plants, and animals that are addictive to either party could be transmitted. And but like for example, proteins, and I think proteins, amino acids are right-handed, what we call right-handed. There's also a left-handed version that we cannot digest. So what if their aliens bring a plant species and animal species that are edible to them, livestock, crops, and we eat them and they're delicious. They're even addictive, but they have zero nutritional value because of the left-handed molecules and proteins. We could gorge ourselves in it and die of starvation or malnourishment, and the same could happen to them. And there's the simple idea of invasive species like weeds, fungi, things like rats, rabbits. I don't know if you read about what happened to Australia. Cats and rabbits got there, and nothing was able to compete with them, and they wound up taking over, the whole biosphere over there and crowding out a lot of native wildlife. And the cats, they're like apex predators there. Nowadays, people are still paid to shoot them with a bounty system, right? So this could happen to us or them, and it's up to us to make sure we're protected, firstly, and if we want to extend them some courtesy and some gratitude for actually making contact and attempting to not harm us, also we need to make sure that our flora and fauna don't harm them. Okay, it's not as simple as the alien steps out of the aircraft, takes off his spacesuit, and it's a white guy like in a lot of 1950s and 60s sci-fi. And I understand they didn't have a huge budget for special effects and costumes, and they didn't have a lot of actors there in leading roles that weren't white. But it won't be like that. Even if they look vastly different from us, they might not be able to expose themselves to our atmosphere. And if they can successfully, we have to worry about them vectoring something to us or them vectoring something back to their people, which is going to have a negative effect, right? So it probably won't be all bad, but it probably won't be all good. I'm sure there are some benefits that could become from exchanging, things in an intelligent manner, but we need to think about how we do it. Okay.